Welcome back, friends. So today we'll start with the second part of our topic, Unit 1, National Income and Related Aggregates. Over here, we will cover the following topics that are already written on the board: stock and flow, meaning and differences, intermediate goods and final goods for calculation of national income, domestic territory, what is meaning and what is its significance for domestic income, residence of a country, that is very important for the calculation of the national income, that is called as NNPFC also, and market price and factor cost. We will be broadly talking about the details of all these topics. So let us begin with the first topic, stock and flow. These are the two concepts in the national income which are necessary to be understood, because various times we are asked in the examination regarding the differences, and even we may be asked to identify the variables which are stock and flow. So basically when we talk about these two things, stock and flow, it is quite easy to remember. Stock are those variables which are measured at a particular point of time. So for example, if right now it is 4:30 p.m. So whatever we are measuring at 4:30 p.m. at a particular point of time, that is called as a stock concept. Whereas a flow are those variables of the national income which are measured during a period of time. So it may be during a day, during an hour, during a week, during a month, during a quarter, during a year. So for example, if you are calculating a national income for a given year, it is a flow concept. So stock, if we talk in another word, stock is a static concept. Static means which is measured at a particular point of time. And flow is a dynamic concept because it is measuring a variable at a particular period of time. So it measures variable during a duration of time which may range from 1 hour to 1 week, 1 quarter, month or year, anything it may vary. So stock and flow are two important variables. For example, when we talk about the examples of stock, say for example wealth, the wealth that we are having in the form of property that changes its value at a particular point of time. So wealth is a stock concept because it is measured at a particular point of time. Whereas income that we earn or the investment that we make during a period of time is a flow concept. So wealth is a stock, income or investment is a flow. Similarly, if we talk about water stored in a tank, it is a stock concept. But when we talk about the water flowing in a river or the stream, it is a flow concept. So stock is a static concept, flow is a dynamic concept. Stock is measured at a particular point of time, flow is measured during a period of time. So stock doesn't have any time dimension, does not have a time dimension. It is measured at a particular point of time. Whereas flow does have a time dimension because it is measured during a period of time. So these are the three important differences: static concept, dynamic concept. Measured at a particular point of time, measured during a period of time. It does not have a time dimension, this has a time dimension. Wealth is a stock, income is a flow. Water in a tank is a stock, water in a river is a flow. So these are certain examples that we will talk about. So these are the meaning and differences that we may talk about, and you may be able to identify them according to their features. Moving on to the another topic, intermediate goods and final goods. See, this intermediate goods and final goods are again a very important concept in the national income chapter. The reason is that we always include only final goods in the calculation of the national income. The final goods are only the part that we include. So that's why we need to understand which are the intermediate goods and final goods. Basically, when we talk about intermediate goods, these are those goods which are used during the process of production. Okay, so these are basically the raw materials. So if the producer is using some goods for further production, they are intermediate goods. Whereas the product which is the final output, it is called as a final good. So intermediate goods are those goods where the value is still to be added to them. Value addition is done to the intermediate goods. Whereas in the final goods, there is no possibility of further addition of valuation to that. Similarly, intermediate goods are those goods which are also meant for resale, means they can be resold to other parties. Whereas final goods are not meant for the reselling. Quite simple to understand. For example, a refrigerator, if it is bought by a household for their final use, it is a final good. But the same refrigerator, if it is purchased by a dealer who is going to resell it to some other customers, then it is an intermediate good. So, intermediate goods are not included in the calculation of national income because it will lead to double counting of the national income, which is a very serious problem which we may face. So, we always include only final goods. So, final goods are included in the national income, intermediate goods are not included. Okay, so over here you can again point out various differences. Intermediate goods are used for further production of goods and services. Final goods have already crossed the production boundary, so these are still under the production boundary, intermediate goods, whereas final goods are outside the production boundary. Value is still to be added to the intermediate goods, value addition is still to be done, whereas in the final goods there is no possibility of further value addition. These are used for further production, these are not used for the further production, these are meant for resale, they can be resold to some other person. This cannot be resold. Over here, one thing is to be kept in mind whenever we talk about this thing. You should always remember the end use, how you will be able to identify a product as the intermediate good or the final good. End use. For example, if we are purchasing a loaf of bread and we are eating it directly, it is a final good for us. But the same bread, if we use it to make sandwich and it is purchased by a restaurant or a hotel, then it is a intermediate good. Similarly, a car purchased by a household for their final use is a final good for us because we are not going to resell it, we are going to use it. But the same car, if it is purchased by the car dealer and it is to be sold to someone else, it is intermediate good. Means we have to concentrate on the end use. If it is a final use by the consumer, it is a final good. If it is still to be resold to someone else, or if the value is still to be added to it, then it becomes the intermediate good. A simple example, another one we can take. For example, if we are talking about a tea vendor, okay, so the milk used by tea vendor, okay, is an intermediate good because he is still going to make tea out of it. But if we are consuming that milk straight away, okay, if we consume the milk straight away, it is a final good for us. So end use is what makes a good intermediate good or final good. It is a very important concept for the calculation of national income. If we include both intermediate good and final good in the calculation, then we may end up calculating the inflated value, the more value of the national income, which is not correct. Similarly, going on to the next topic is the domestic territory, which is very important for calculation of the domestic income, and domestic income in economics is calculated as the NDPFC, net domestic product at factor cost. We'll talk about these things later. What is domestic territory and why it is important? See, domestic territory is very important for the calculation of domestic income. Every country calculates its domestic income so that it may get a proper value of the domestic income that has been produced during a year. So for domestic territory, you should keep certain things in mind. Domestic territory first of all includes the international boundary of a country. That means it includes the geographical boundary, which not only includes the land surface of a country, which is having a international boundary, but it also has the water bodies under it as well as the airspace. So the geographical territory, the water territory and the airspace. These are the first thing that we include in the domestic territory. Secondly, all the embassies, consulates located in some other country of a country are also the part of their domestic territory. For example, our embassy in Japan, our embassy in Australia or any part of the world, our embassy, our consulates where our Indian flag is there is the domestic territory of our country, although it is located over there, but still because it is working for our benefit and it is representing our nation, so all our consulates, embassies, and military bases, these three things are again wherever they are located, they are the part of the domestic territory of that country. They represent domestic territory of that country, the flag of which country hosts over there. So our embassies, consulates or military bases, anywhere they are located, whether it is in USA, whether it is in America, whether it is in the South America, or whether it is in Australia or England, all these embassies, consulates and military bases will be part of our domestic territory, and it is helpful whenever we calculate our domestic income, that is NDPFC, net domestic product at factory cost. Moving on to another part, residence of a country. See, we know about the citizenship, but over here when we are looking at the national income concept, we are not mainly concerned about the citizens, we talk about the residents of a country. So when we talk about this residence, why this word is being highlighted over here, the residence is a very important concept. Over in the domestic territory I have forgotten a few things. In the domestic territory we also include all our aircraft and ships. So we are talking about the domestic territory. In the domestic territory we also include the aircraft and ships which are owned and operated by our residents anywhere in the world. Say for example, the Air India plane flying from India to some other country, or our ships from India traveling to other countries, whether they are anywhere in the world, because their owners are Indians, that becomes the domestic territory of our country. Similarly, the fishing vessels, oil rigs, floating anywhere in the world where we own that, we are the owners, the country, the citizens are the owner of that, that becomes the part of the domestic territory of that particular country. So these things have to be kept in mind. Okay, basically you have to keep in mind that it includes all the, over here when we talk about domestic territory, we talk about first the geographical boundary, which includes the land area, airspace and water bodies. Secondly, all the embassies, consulates and military bases located anywhere in the world. Thirdly, all the ships and aircrafts operated by the residents of that country, operated by the citizens of that country. And fourthly, it includes all the floating vehicles, whether they are the fishing vehicles or the oil rigs of that country, all forms the part of domestic territory of that country. Residence of a country for national income, it is quite important. Residents, as I was talking earlier, citizens and residents are two different concepts. Residents are those people, how we can identify the residents? Residents are those people whose economic interest of living in that country is there in that particular country. Or we can identify it by the two clauses. First, if a person is living in a particular country for more than 1 year, and secondly, his purpose of living in that country has economic interest. Economic interest over here means the earning of that person is from that country, he spends the income over there, or either he makes investment in that country. In all these three cases, he will be called as resident of a country. So it is quite easy to identify a person who is a resident of a country, one who lives in that country for more than 1 year, and secondly, his purpose of living in that country is economic interest is there, that is he lives over there for earning purpose, spending purpose, or for investment purpose in that particular country. So whenever we look at the national income, our chapter is national income only. So whenever we are calculating the national income, we should keep in mind that national income is included of only those people who are residents of that country. So that obviously over here we should keep in mind that when we are calculating the domestic income, if we are looking at this particular part, domestic income, then we should see whether the production is done in the domestic territory of a country or not. If it is in the domestic territory, it will be the part of domestic income of a country. Similarly, when we are calculating the national income, we should focus on residents. If that person is a resident of that country, then only we will include that in the national income part. And the difference is NDPFC is domestic income and NNPFC is the national income. That we will talk about in the coming video. Then we will talk about the market price and factor cost. See, it is quite easy. If you have heard my previous lecture, you might be aware about the 4 factors of production. The 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. We have talked about this in the circular flow of national income that we household sector provide to the producer sector. So see, it is quite obvious that whatever cost is incurred on hiring the factors of production for production purpose is called as factor cost. Means whatever amount is spent by the production units for producing a given commodity or service is called as factor cost. Means rent for land, wages and salaries for labor, interest on capital, and profit for the entrepreneur are the 4 important payments that they make for factor services. So whatever payment are made in this 4 form, that is rent, wages, salaries, then interest and profit, the sum total of that is called as factor cost. So that is the cost which is being beared by the person who is taking the production process. So factor cost is that part. This is what we are talking about. Over here we are talking about the mandatory factor cost. Okay. So factor cost is that part. Then what is market price? Now the question arises, what is market price? Market price is when the goods and services are produced and they are delivered to us through various means, whether retailers or by the other people, then we don't get it at a factor cost. There are certain things which are added to it and we get that product at market price. So factor cost is different and market price is different. So factor cost is that cost which is incurred by the producing units. What is market price then? Market price is nothing but when you add factor cost plus net indirect taxes. If the net indirect taxes are added to the factor cost, we get the concept of what we call as the market price. So it is quite simple that factor cost plus NIT, that is net indirect tax, makes the market price. Now again the question in your mind may arise that what is this NIT? What are net indirect taxes? See, net indirect tax is nothing but the differences. When we talk about net indirect taxes, it is indirect tax minus subsidies. Whatever product comes to us, either we have got addition of indirect taxes which are imposed by the government on the product which we are supposed to pay for that product. Apart from that, sometimes even the government provides subsidies. For example, we get subsidy on LPG cylinder, the farmers get subsidy on the fertilizers, on the seeds, etc. These subsidies are borne by the government. So that things are subtracted. Whereas when we talk about the indirect taxes that are added. So net indirect tax is nothing but it is the difference between indirect taxes and subsidies. So this is what it makes the market price. So NIT over here, this is quite simple to remember that factor cost is the cost which is being borne by the producers for producing the product, but because the profit is also to be added, and apart from that it is available to us at the market price. For getting the market price, we add factor cost plus net indirect taxes. We add net indirect taxes to factor cost, and by that we get the market price. So over here net indirect tax is nothing but indirect tax minus subsidies. So these are the very important concepts that we need to remember whenever we are dealing with, whether with the theoretical part of our national income or whether we are solving the numericals of the national income. So I hope this all concepts are quite clear to you, and even you have to remember that whenever you are dealing with any variable, you have to remember these concepts for your better understanding. In our next slide, we will talk about investment, types of investment, and even we will also take up certain calculation of the national income. So over here, it's your friend Narinder Singh Jassal, PGT Economics, and I'm bringing to you the more slides, more videos on the same topic. I hope it will make your concepts clear, and you will keep on watching and liking my videos. Please subscribe to my videos also. Have a nice day. We will meet again with the third part of the same unit, national income and related aggregates. Till then, keep smiling. Take care.